As you start reading the poem, kindly underline the important words and you can frame your own questions which you will be facing in your examination. As I am solving the questions here, I am also giving a hint how to prepare for the coming semester. All the sparkles which are coming out of this wheel and the knife, they are compared to golden jets. Now, before you answer the question, you should know the meaning of critically analyze. Hello, hi, namaste and welcome to Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence. I am Nandakishore, Faculty of English in Vidhyaashram, MYSURU. In today's session, I am going to discuss the model question paper for the first semester B.A. and B.C.A. MYSURU University students. So let us start solving this question paper, and I'm sure this is going to help you to clarify all your doubts about the question paper pattern and the scheme of evaluation. Let's start solving the questions. In the very first main, you will be facing 15 questions. Out of 15 questions, you have to attempt any 10. The very first question is, where did the clerk come from in Chaucer's poem? This question is from the Oxford Clerk, written by Geoffrey Chaucer, and the clerk has come from Oxford. And let me tell you, as I start solving the questions, here is a tip for all my viewers, all my students. When you read a piece of poem or prose, for that matter, any content, you have to predict the questions that you are going to face in your examination. For example, you read the poem, The Oxford Clerk, and in this question paper, they have asked only 2 questions. And I'm sure these questions will not be repeated for the next examination. So what you have to do is, as you start reading the poem, kindly underline the important words and you can frame your own questions which you will be facing in your examination. The second question is, how did the clerk look? He looked very thin, or as thin as his horse, or even as thin as a rake. A rake is an instrument where it is used to cut the bushes and make way. Third one, the poet's friend is compared to a dash in the poem, shall I compare thee? He is compared to summer's day or summer's morning. What does the phrase, the eye of heaven, mean for Shakespeare? The eye of heaven means the sun. Who moves ceaselessly in the poem sparkles from the wheel? It is the crowd or people of the city. Sixth one, where does the knife grinder work according to Walt Whitman in the poem Sparkles from the Wheel? He is working by the curb or by the pole. Could be the curb or by the flagpole. Whom does father refer to in the poem Where the Mind is Without Fear? This poem is written by Rabindranath Tagore. It means to God. Father is referring to God here. How does the tiger move in the forest according to Sri Aurobindo? This poem is The Tiger and the Deer, written by Sri Aurobindo. The tiger, it crouches and slouches. Crouching and slouching. The next one is, what do the tiger and the deer stand for? Tiger is predator and deer is prey. You can also write tiger is mighty, it represents the strength, and the deer represents weakness or even mild. You can answer in multiple ways, but make sure whichever answer you write will represent the words from the poem. The next one is, who was called Toba Tek Singh? This is the question from prose. Toba Tek Singh, written by Saadat Hasan Manto. Toba Tek Singh is none other than Bishan Singh. 11th one, what would Toba Tek Singh do when his relatives visited him? He would take bath and dress up. Now, as I am solving the questions here, I am also giving a hint how to prepare for the coming semester. And I already told you all that you have to underline the important words. You have to frame your own questions. Just because we are solving the previous year's question paper, this is the question paper of the year 2019, and hope you can predict the questions which you're going to face in upcoming semester. Next one is, which was the question that the daughter-in-law asked every morning in The Clay Mother-in-Law, written by A.K. Ramanujan, about how many seers of rice to cook. Every morning, this daughter-in-law, she troubled her mother-in-law, and even she troubled her husband after the death of mother-in-law. 13th question, who stole the food cooked by the daughter-in-law? It is the neighbor's wife. Who are the Mahars according to B.R. Ambedkar? Mahars were untouchables. Even this answer is correct. Or you can write they themselves, in the sense Ambedkar, they themselves along with his sibling and cousins, they themselves were called Mahars. Last question in main 1. Which problem in the country is focused on and on the way to Gurgaon? It is untouchability. Untouchability problem is highly discussed in this prose. Let us move on to second main now here. In second main, you will be facing any 4 questions. Out of any 4 questions, you are going to attempt any 2. So this is going to carry 5 marks each. Now, the question is how to annotate, how to attempt this section. Most of you may have a doubt, sir, should we write the summary when these 2 lines are asked, or should we write analysis or criticize or appreciate? How to attempt this section? I'm going to give you a brief introduction or ideas how to attempt this annotate section. Now let us see this first question. And he too was not fat, that I take, but he looked emaciated, moreover, abstemiously. Now, these 2 lines are taken from the poem, The Oxford Clerk, written by Geoffrey Chaucer. Here is the answer. You have to talk about the poem. You have to write the title of the poem. You have to talk about the poet, Geoffrey Chaucer, and the context. Now, who is telling to whom, or who is talking about these words about whom? Now, here it is the poet who introduces the Oxford Clerk, and in simple, I have given this describing the physical appearance of the Oxford Clerk by the poet. Now, if you write these much, minimum 3 to 4 marks is guaranteed. Now, how do you write? Let us just go back to this slide. And he too was not fat, in the sense, who is here? Now, we have to talk about each and every word if possible, or else let us take individual line to talk about or to describe in full. Now, he too was not fat, that I take. Now, after looking at the Oxford Clerk, the poet Geoffrey Chaucer says that the Oxford Clerk was not fat at all, and the poet says that I know, he is very sure that Oxford Clerk is not fat at all, but he looked emaciated and moreover abstemiously, in the sense he looks very down to earth. He is wearing dirty clothes. Yes, he is not wearing very rich robes, and he is not carrying things like a rich man. He looks very down to earth. Let us move on to the second one now. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Now, this question is from the poem Shall I Compare Thee, written by William Shakespeare. Poem is Shall I Compare Thee? Poet is William Shakespeare. Let me just give you a complete detailed answer how to attempt this question. Now, I have just mentioned 3 important points here, but let me just go back and talk about how you have to answer in your semesters. Now, these lines are taken from, this is how you are going to write. These lines are taken from the poem Shall I Compare Thee, full stop. And the poet is William Shakespeare, full stop. And these 2 lines mean that he is assuring that his beloved, his companion, is going to live as long as there are men who are breathing, who are alive, which simply means that as long as there is life on planet Earth. And he moves on to saying that as long eyes can see, in the sense any living creature which exists on planet Earth, even till then you're going to be alive. You are immortal. He's trying to immortalize his beloveds, or maybe his friends, or maybe his companions' existence. He's trying to immortalize on planet Earth. So long lives these. So he is saying that as long as there is a living creature on planet Earth, you are going to be alive in the memory of all the living creature, or maybe whoever reads this. And this gives life to thee, and this gives life to you. In the sense, once a person reads this poem, this companion of Shakespeare will be taking rebirth again, and he goes on to live further. Let us move on to the third one. The scene and all its belongings, how they seize and affect me. And this question is taken from Sparkles from the Whale, written by Walt Whitman. And the context is, describes the effect of knife sharpener on the poet. Now, as the poem opens, the poet is affected. He looks at the knife sharpener and he tells that he is comparing. In fact, in this poem, Walt Whitman compares the knife sharpener to the godly act, saintly act. Why? Because he is trying to sharpen the knife, and all the sparkles which are coming out of this wheel and the knife, they are compared to golden jets, and there are a lot of description. And the poet Walt Whitman goes on to say that it has affected me, it has seized me, it has captured me, and I'm not able to look at any other things apart from looking at the knife sharpener, who looks very sad, who appears very dull, but though he is sad himself, he is trying to do his duty perfectly. He is a sort of a perfectionist, though not good at his appearance. Next one, where the knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. These lines are taken from Where the Mind is Without Fear, written by Rabindranath Tagore. The context is, he is trying to express his free will and power of knowledge. Now, Rabindranath Tagore says that knowledge is not limited. It is not limited to few people. It is free of cost. It is to each and everybody in our nation. And the knowledge what is free-flowing is not broken down by narrow domestic walls. In the sense, he's talking about the perception of the people, where the ideology, the ideas, the mentality, the thinking is not limited. It shouldn't be broken down by narrow domestic walls. It is, this entire poem is a sort of invocation, the prayer where he is trying to pray to God to bless the people of India so that they can attain the freedom. So that is about the fourth question here. Now let us move on to third section. In third section, there will be 3 questions, and out of 3, you're going to attempt any 2. Out of 3, any 2 will be attempted, and this carries 10 marks each. This is the essay type question, the lengthy one, and you have to explain it in detail according to the question. Now the first question is, how does Chaucer portray Oxford clock? Now what is the content you have to include in this answer? As I tell my students, it is one of the important criteria to maintain these 3 contents. The very first content is about the poem. You have to mention the title of the poem, the Oxford Clock. Now this question is from the poem, the Oxford Clock. The poet is Geoffrey Chaucer, and what are the contents you have to include in this question? Now, very first time when Geoffrey Chaucer meets Oxford clerk, he goes on to say that he is from Oxford, studied philosophy. I've just included few points here by putting commas here, and you're going to find few conjunctions to join the sentences here, join the words and make the meaningful sentences. And make sure that you're going to break the sentences into meaningful segments. Why? Because don't write lengthy sentences which runs 3 or 4 lines. Always remember, try to break the sentences with meaningful segments. He is from Oxford, studied philosophy, as thin as a rake. He had books bound with red and black color, and he had it near the pillow. He had studied Aristotle and no rich robes. He was very down to earth, very less gold. He carried very little gold in his trunk and rejected worldly pleasure, borrowed money to spend only on books and education, prayed for people who helped him, spoke very less. He just spoke what was required, very less with dignity, and that too, whatever he spoke was with virtue and dignity, taught gladly what he had learned. So he went on to teach whatever he had learned studying philosophy. So these are the contents you have to include in your answer. Next is critically analyze Shall I Compare Thee by Shakespeare. Now, before you answer the question, you should know the meaning of critically analyze. Critically analyze means you have to talk about the structure of the poem, you have to talk about the parts of speech, maybe the figures of speech, the contents which you see in this poem, what does the poet mean, and what is that you have understood. So critically you are going to analyze. Here is thing, as I told you, 3 important ideas you have to present in your answer. Poem, Shall I Compare Thee? Poet William Shakespeare. Contents, he is talking about fair youth, whether you should compare him to a summer day. Rough winds often shake the beloved flowers of the season. What's more, summer is over all too quickly. We all know this is to be true when September rolls round. The nights start drawing in and we get that sinking back to school feeling. The young man is better than a summer's day. Now, whatever I'm reading here, there is no continuity. I'm just giving you the basic ideas here. These are the contents, the answers, minimum answers, what we expect. You can also improvise this answer. Whatever I'm presenting here, that doesn't mean it's the ultimate answer that you can present in your answer booklet. You can always improve the answer. So these are the contents. You can go through this, and critically analyze means that Shakespeare is trying to compare his friend, his beloved, his companion to the summer's day. So why is he trying to compare is the main answer what you have to present here. Now why is that he is trying to compare to summer's day, and why is that he is not comparing him to any other season? Is it because that he cannot find words, or is it because he finds too easy to compare his beloved to summer's day? And what are the images he is trying to find here? He goes on to compare, the buds, the flowers, the mayflowers, and why his friend, his companion to these objects. So that is how you critically analyze in this answer. Next one is, what is the central theme of the poem Where the Mind is Without Fear? Now this is the question from Where the Mind is Without Fear. The poet is Rabindranath Tagore. The content, what we expect is trying to express his love for his country and praise to the Almighty for its well-being. The poet also talks about the difficulty or difficulties that the countrymen have faced or are facing to gain freedom. And he finally comes up with an idea that, he can pray to God and let God bless the countrymen, my countrymen, to free from the shackles of fear, and they gain a lot of strength to fight against the Britishers, the colonial masters, and to attain the ultimate freedom at the end. Third one is summarize the poem, The Tiger and the Deer. So here is the answer. Poem is The Tiger and the Deer. Poet is Sri Aurobindo. Contents is like where he talks about the tiger as a representation of cruel power, dark power, yes, the mightiness. The deer is weak and mild. We have to talk about how the tiger crouches and attacks the deer, and at the end of the poem we get to see that how even the mightiest animal or the mighty perishes. But we talk about how well the tiger goes on to hunt the deer and how the deer dies thinking about its companion deep in the forest. And here Sri Aurobindo is talking about how the colonial masters or maybe the cruel power will not last longer. The way the mammoths once shook the Asian plains went on to extinction, even the cruel or the bad power will come to an end. He talks about how the evil power, the bad power, or maybe he is also talking about the colonial master who went on to dominate, who went on to colonize a lot of countries, who came to an end one fine day. So this is the continuation page here. We have just given the answers. Next one is main 4. Again, we are going to face 3 questions. Out of 3 questions, you are going to attempt any 2. So this is from prose. There are 2 sections asking 3 questions. One is from poem and the other one is from prose. Now we are dealing with prose here. Out of 3 questions you face, you are going to attempt any 2. The question is, discuss the story Toba Tek Singh as a satire on partition. Now this prose is written by Sadat Hasan Manto and the prose is Toba Tek Singh. The contents, the story takes place just before the India-Pakistan partition in one of the oldest mental asylums and how the asylum inmates were exchanged. And there is one person called Bishan Singh and he has hailed from Toba Tek Singh district. Now this is a place even today which exists in Pakistan, present Pakistan, and after he learns that he belongs to India, he is an Indian, and after the partition that his district, his place, Toba Tek Singh, has become the part of Pakistan, now he is not ready to come back to India. So forcibly the mental inmates, the asylum inmates were exchanged, and it is a sort of a satire. It is mocked at how that mentally ill people were exchanged. And at the end of the prose, we get to see that Bishan Singh is not a troublemaker here, but he wants to just go back to his place, Toba Tek Singh, and he doesn't want to come back to India without much options left. He stands there in the land which neither belongs to India nor Pakistan. So that is the pathetic feeling one can undergo in this prose. So this is the answer. Let us move on to the second one here. How does the clay mother-in-law ridicule the greedy here? Now, as we know, the clay mother-in-law is written by A.K. Ramanujan. It is the story, short story collection, and it talks about one foolish wife who goes on to trouble her mother-in-law and even her husband. But after her husband comes up with an idea of bringing the life-size statue of his mother, she finds it very easy to prepare the rice every day. But after learning, the husband gets very angry because she is trying to serve the statue, the doll, the clay mother-in-law, and the husband beats his wife, puts his wife out along with the statue. She carries it, goes to the forest, sits on a tree, and at that particular night, she hears somebody walking towards the tree, and they happen to become the thieves who have looted. And out of fear, she drops this clay mother-in-law, the statue, right in front of them, and they run helter-skelter. She becomes rich. She goes back home. They borrow the seer, the measuring seer, and out of curiosity, the neighbor's husband, he sticks this tamarind under the seer, and they go on to learn that these two husband and wife have become too rich, and the neighbors decide that he is going to send his wife to the forest so that even she becomes rich. She goes to forest the same way the neighbor's wife had been, and there she will be caught and will be beaten black and blue. So greedy, trying to become rich overnight is not possible. For few people, out of millions of people, one or two might be lucky enough to get rich enough overnight, but not possible with each and everyone's case. So here it is just a message, it is a moral story where A.K. Ramanujan is trying to give a message through this poem that greediness is not good to mankind. Last one, discuss the difficulties faced by Ambedkar during the journey to Gurgaon. Now, it is the autobiography of Ambedkar himself on the way to Gurgaon. Here, the author is Dr. B.R. Ambedkar himself. He talks about the difficulties that he undergoes in this prose. He has an aunt who is sick and mother is dead, and they had to cook their own food, left their aunt in the care of neighbors, and boarded the train. And after they got down in the station, MYSURU, the problem they find is with the ticket collector there. Yes, the station master. He realizes that these children, they were Mahars, and he tried not to help them actually. He feels disgusted to talk to them, but later somehow he is convinced that he should help them, and he finds the cartman, and the cartman is not able to take them to Gurgaon. And what are the difficulties they face? They have to drive the cart by themselves, and it takes more than 10 hours to reach the destination. And on the way, it is very difficult because they have eaten food, but they don't have water to drink. And they reach the border where they have to cross, and the cartman tells that, you have to go and talk to this Muslim, the Sahib, so that he will give you some water. And Ambedkar goes on to imitate himself, impersonate himself as a Muslim, but the person, the in charge, the official there will not give him water. So after reaching Gurgaon, his father, who is working as a cashier, father is dumbstruck. He is dumbstruck to learn that he has not received a letter. So that's how badly these people were treated in their lives. It mainly talks about untouchability, the difficulties, very important. And Ambedkar, apart from this, he also goes on to narrate his school experience, where he had to go to the tap and wait for somebody, wait for peon actually to come and open the tap for him so that he can go and drink water. If peon has not come, if the peon is absent, is on leave, then no water for Ambedkar. So that's how badly Ambedkar was treated. Not only Ambedkar, there were millions of untouchables who were treated very badly. And that's what this prose all about. So that is about literature part. Now let us come back to language component. The next section is language component. The very first section you get to see is choose the correct homophones. And you should know what are homophones, the words which are pronounced same but gives the different spelling and meaning. The first question is, Cinderella is very fair. Very fair. This fair is ticket fare, the money. Next one, I dyed my hair. Now, which is this dyed? I dyed my hair. Next one, third one, I went to a dash shop to buy books. Correct answer is stationery. There are two stationeries. This stationery is being still, and this is stationery shop. Stationery shop. Fourth one, mother went to buy vegetables. It is buy. Let us move on to the next one. B. Fill in the blanks with appropriate articles. There are no options given here because it is clearly understood there are only three articles. She bought an umbrella because it's a vowel. December is the coldest. Coldest, it's because superlative degree, the is used here. Coldest, hottest, coolest, tallest, worst. So this is superlative degree. Any word which ends with superlative degree will usually take the. Third one, he is dash man of action. Now here, he is the man of action. He is a man of action. Yes, of course, but here we are talking about particularly the man of action. The man, we are talking about one particular man here. He is the man of action. It is a big union. A big union. Let us move on, and you should know that this language component, each section will carry 1 mark and you will face 4 questions. Choose the correct form of verbs here. Good students work hard. If it is good student, then it is works hard. Since it is good students, it is work. Next one, the cat has eaten the fruits. If it is cats, then it is have. The cats have eaten the fruits. The sun rises in the east. One of the teachers was absent yesterday. Why was? It's because we are talking about one of the teachers. Just because you see the plural form, that doesn't mean it is were. Were is wrong. It is one of the teachers. Out of all the teachers, we are talking about only one. So it is was. If the question would have been the teachers, if I remove this, the teachers were absent yesterday, then it is were. Next section, fill in the blanks with appropriate preposition. The shop opens at 10 o'clock. They are not going to give you any options, so be careful while using the answers here. Next, there was a theft at the night. Third one, one of them was absent. Fourth, they came to meet him. They came to meet him. And this is the last section in language component. Read the passage and answer the questions that follow. Now, here is the passage you can see here. Here is a tip that I would like to give all my students. Don't read the passage first. It is the tip to all my students. Don't ever read the passage first. Why? Because it is time saving. You read the question set first and then read the passage. Now, what gives a good start in our day's work? Now, what is a state of mind in the early morning? What is the outcome of a man's habit of early to bed and early to rise? Who is healthier, early riser or late riser? Now, we know that we have read 4 questions. Let us start solving this passage. Now, what gives a good start in our day's work? Early rising gives a good start to our day's work. Simple. You write this line. Yes. And what is the state of the mind in the early morning? In the early morning, the mind is fresh and there is very few distractions. Simple. The mind is fresh and there are very few distractions. What is the outcome of man's habit of early to bed and early to rise? So let us see. The early riser does a large amount of hard work thoroughly without hurry before other gets out of the bed and also finds time to take some exercise in the morning, which supplies him with a fund of energy. He gets several hours of refreshing sleep before midnight. Thus, his habit of early to bed and early to rise makes him healthy, wealthy and wise. So what is the outcome of man's habit of early to bed and early to rise? It is the answer here. Does the habit of early to bed and early to rise makes him healthy, wealthy, and wise? It might seem that these three lines are the answer, but not. Okay, the most appropriate one would be this. So who is healthier, early riser or late riser? Of course, it is early riser. So that is how you answer these questions. And for God's sake, make sure that you will not be writing unnecessary lines, and more than 2 or 3 unnecessary lines found in the answer will not be rewarded with any mark. Because it is not just reading the passage and trying to answer the questions here. It is about how well you comprehend. The meaning of the comprehend simply means that you are going to read a passage, trying to understand, analyze it, and then you are going to reframe the sentence or reframe the answer in your own words. If it is not possible, at least write the nearest answer possible. I hope this session is going to reward you very well in your examinations. I'm going to meet you in my next session. Until then, keep watching. Have a good day. Perform well in your exams.